Got very good arms.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable. You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Welcome back to Thick and Critical. This is Wes. We are issue number 11 on Tom King's Strange Adventures. Now, I imagine most of you, as I personally did, expected some type of character deconstruction that Adam Strange, the hero, would be unraveled throughout this story. In the very first issue, it kind of posed the question, is he a hero or is he a war criminal? Well, obviously, this is a Tom King story. He's a war criminal. It was heavily hinted at that his daughter, Aaliyah, was likely dead, possibly at his hands. Turns out that's not the case. Tom did throw a little wrinkle in there. Adam Strange's daughter is alive. He just happened to give her to the enemy in exchange for him and his wife to live. And he also had to, betray Earth and all the heroes on Earth in order for that to happen. So this was completely expected. And at this point, if you read enough Tom King stories, generally speaking, they start out pretty good and then they just fall apart after about 4 or 5 issues of filler that didn't need to exist anyway. And then, he destroys the character and ends the story. The only comic story really that he started that was just bad from day one, in my opinion, is Heroes in Crisis. That was a stupid idea and bad execution from the moment it started. Otherwise, if you go read his Batman, it starts out pretty good. If you go read Rorschach, it starts out pretty good, although he hasn't destroyed Rorschach yet. Perhaps he's deconstructing Frank Miller or maybe the comic book industry. I'm still uncertain what that comic is even about. But we get in here to Adam Strange's Strange Adventures, and he's ruined his marriage, and I don't know. It's a depressing comic, like most Tom King comic books end up being, like most of his stories. He's like the M. Night Shyamalan of depression in comic books. It's the same gimmick over and over and over, and it gets quite tiresome. Yet DC Comics and the leadership there, and I think they're ultimately, Tom King is not responsible for this anymore. It's ultimately, it's Jim Lee, the chief of creative. It's Marie Javins, the editor-in-chief. At this point, it still would have been Jamie Rich, his main editor on the books. That he's just doing the same thing. He's just ruining characters over and over. And a character like Adam Strange, you're not going to see him very often. He'll show up in a Justice League team every once in a while, get a mini series every 15 years or something. And when you see Tom King got your character, you want to read the book because it's your favorite character, right? And you're not going to see another miniseries with him for like 10 years. But then you see that it's Tom King and I remember Heroes in Crisis. I remember Batman. I remember Mr. Miracle. I remember all the other things that he's done during his time. This might not be good, and it turns out it isn't. I often think that the main hero in these stories is a direct reflection of Tom King himself. At least that's the way I kind of interpret it. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but when you read enough stories, you kind of get you get a feeling for the characters and you get a feeling for the writer. We pretty much see the same song and dance with every single one of these heroes. They end up having insecurity issues. They tend to lie, and they end up a lot of times playing second fiddle to the female characters in their lives. Now, is that what Tom King experiences in his life? I have no idea. I'm not here to psychoanalyze that, but that does sometimes the impression I get. Although in this comic book, being that Adam Strange is definitely portrayed as a soldier, obviously a science fiction kind of soldier, going to Rann, defending the people there, coming back to Earth, being hailed a hero. Is this is this his interpretation of the military? And obviously he was in the CIA. We know that he was deployed, I believe, to Iraq. I think there's photos of that out there. Does he have did he come away with a bad impression of the soldiers and airmen and sailors in the U.S. military? I'm not really sure. I don't really know. I assume this is him, but perhaps he's still dealing with some issues, maybe that, during a deployment or something there. I also deployed for a year. You see some crazy stuff. I was intelligence. I worked for 3-letter agencies, not the CIA, but I did work for some 3-letter agencies. And we probably saw some similar stuff, and it can definitely affect you. And if that is what's going on, I definitely wish nothing but the best for Tom King. And I hope he whatever's affecting him gets better. But it's certainly there's something that's affected you, because you see the same thing over and over and over. In this comic in particular, we finally get to Adam Strange, Strange Adventures number 11. Previous issue, Mr. Terrific reveals that his daughter's alive and he's sold out the world. And we got to see, not graphic, but we certainly got to see Adam Strange executing, picked soldiers from behind, which apparently was all part of a ruse, because that was part of his big plan, which is rough enough, right? Rough enough seeing stuff like that. That's the way the character's being portrayed. But here it's even worse. He's a terrible father. He's a worse husband. He's a coward. And you're basically just watching like their marriage fall apart, him and Alanna Strange's marriage. Maybe some people get enjoyment out of stuff like this. I personally don't. I do have a few examples here. We'll look at this one first. This is when Alanna is confronting Adam. Where's my daughter? Is she alive? And he sees that the jig is up. His story is unraveling. That the lies have been spotted, and yet, of course, because he's a man, he's an asshole. He can't admit that what he did. He can't admit that he lied. He's trying to, of course, spin it, because he's a piece of shit. He's a man. He's got to be a piece of shit. That's the only way that you can really portray people, or he can portray men in comic books. It's really, I don't know. It's just not a lot of fun. I guess this might make a lot of people feel something. It did make me feel something. I kind of feel bad for Tom King, but I also, I feel worse for Adam Strange fans. That's who I feel bad for. That's the feeling I get. At this point, I've seen it so many times that there's no effect. I understand this is character deconstruction, and it's supposed to be jarring. But when you do the same thing over and over and over, the effect wears off. Batman The Dark Knight Returns is a lot more effective, even though Frank Miller had done some character deconstruction, because you also got, Batman Year One around the same time frame. Completely different tone and take on the character. Now, eventually, Frank Miller, in my opinion, kind of fell into the same old song and dance, and guess what? His effectiveness wore off as far as being able to make you feel anything as a reader. It's like, okay, I've seen this before. And that is absolutely where Tom King is stuck. And he's been stuck here for years now. And I don't know how many times you see Alanna Strange slap Adam. I guess domestic violence is a great thing to see in comic books. Now, should these things be addressed in comic books? Yeah, every once in a while. She slaps him, must be 3 or 4 times at least, telling him he's weak, and he, don't call me weak. She's like, you're weak. Of course he's weak. This is a male character written by Tom King. It doesn't matter that it's Adam Strange. It doesn't matter that it's somebody else's creation. It doesn't matter that he's always been portrayed as a competent hero with high moral upstanding and also a good father and husband. That's not the point here. You got to slap the shit out of him. You got to let him know he's a coward. He's a piece of shit. Is this self-flagellation? I don't know. It kind of feels that way. And it's just slapping him over and over, and just, violence, blood all over the place. They're drinking, throwing drinks at each other. It's supposed to be a visceral experience. It's just more the same. Like I said, the M. Night Shyamalan of depression in comic books. You've let the genie out of the bottle so many times at this point that these slaps have been rendered meaningless. And at another point, obviously, when he's had enough, Adam Strange pulls out his weapon, points his sidearm right at his wife's face. Of course, they're cursing at each other the entire time. And she knows he's a pussy. She knows that he's a bitch. She knows that he's a coward. She knows that he's a weakling. She's told him that to her face. Nice laser gun you got there, Adam. What do you want to do with it? Can you imagine a hero pointing a gun in his wife's face? Heroes don't do stuff like this. Yeah, maybe heroes do have bad moments. But that's why we read comic books, as a bit of escapism. And yes, every once in a while, when you get some character deconstruction or something like The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen, and it blows your mind because you've never seen anything like that, and it's really impactful. But there's no impact anymore. Who cares that he pointed a gun on his face? Do you think that he would be able to shoot her in the face? This is a Tom King written male character, not a hero. He doesn't write heroes. That's probably the biggest problem. That's the biggest takeaway from all this. You just don't get heroes in Tom King's superhero comics anymore. Why don't Jim Lee, Marie Javins, Jamie Rich, anyone, why don't they step in and help this guy out? Not just with himself. It's his own business. I'm sure he's dealing with whatever issues he has on his own. But this is their business. These are their characters. They're the caretakers of these characters. They're there to make sure that they are still, sellable. You can't sell Adam Strange after a story like this. I don't care if it's out of continuity. This is the Omniverse, baby. Everything happened. And Adam Strange absolutely sold his daughter to the villains. He murdered a bunch of prisoners of war by lining them up and shooting them in the back of the head. He lied to his wife. He ruined his marriage. And then he pulled a gun and pointed at his wife's face. Can you come back from stuff like this? Like, how hard is someone going to have to work to undo all the character assassination that's been accomplished just in this one comic book? And that's not even to mention what he did to Mr. Terrific, several months ago. How jaded of a person do you have to be? And hey, I'm a cynical person. You could call me thinking cynical for a reason. How jaded of a person do you have to be to portray that Mr. Terrific, when his pregnant wife died, felt relieved because he didn't think he wanted to be a father? It's such a weird take on things. Like, I just don't get it. But this is your hero, folks. This is the hero that Tom King wants you to know. There's no hero at all. That's the problem. And of course, we get to the end, and this is still mixing in the flashbacks to Rann, to what's going on currently in Adam Strange. There's no point for this anymore. The flashbacks really accomplish nothing other than, I guess, this one page right here. You do see that they were happy once the war on Rann was over, and it appears that Adam had won and he was victorious. Of course, he was lying the whole time. They get to tell each other that they love each other. But it doesn't make the fact that they struggle with the gun and eventually it fires. And eventually we find out that Adam Strange is dead on the ground with his wife sitting over. Because we've read these stories so many times over and over again, Tom King has pulled the same trick, the same rabbit out of his hat. Sure, this is a little bit different, variation on the trick, but it's the same trick over and over and over again. There's no impact left. The only impact is, well, I knew it was coming. Now I know the details. Was it really worth it? No, not really. And the question is, to Jim Lee, Marie Javins, and the leadership at DC Comics, was it worth it to sell out one of your heroes? Is Adam Strange a mainline DC Comics hero? He's not Batman. He's not Superman. He's not Nightwing. He's not Flash. He's not any of those characters, but he's somebody's favorite hero. And with a little bit of TLC and some good quality storytelling, you can certainly elevate a character like Adam Strange. There's a cool hook to that. He's a cool sci-fi superhero. There aren't a lot of those out there, especially in the DC universe. Was it worth it to damage this brand? I don't think so, and I don't get it. But this is what we get over and over and over again with Tom King. And he's getting the human target next. And he's got, I think, 2 issues of Rorschach left. So issue 11's coming. That's when he'll destroy something. And, I don't imagine he's going to do anything to Kara Zor-El, Supergirl. He's basically ripping off True Grit with that story. And in that story, Maddie Ross and Rooster Cogburn, things turn out okay. She does lose a limb or whatever, but in the end, the heroes win in that one. I wonder if he's not gonna flip the script on that one because that's a female hero. But we've come to the end of the road of another Tom King miniseries that should have been 5 issues or 6 issues instead of 12. Another hero sacrificed at the altar of Tom King's depressed, comic book writing style. We got Batman, Wally West, Scott Free, Mr. Terrific, Adam Strange. And the list goes on and on. I don't understand why they keep giving him these opportunities. If you're a big Tom King fan, that's great. I'm glad he's your favorite writer. But even you have to admit, at this point, it's time to find another gimmick, man. You can't just do the same thing over and over and over. It just wears off. The effectiveness wears off. There's no impact anymore. Nobody's feeling anything anymore. Other than I feel sorry for fans of the character, and I feel sorry for fans of the human target. And I hope Tom King's okay. Honestly, I don't wish ill on anybody. Certainly not somebody that is deployed out there and put themselves in harm's way to defend their country. He seems to have come back a little bit jaded, but I completely understand that. I know a lot of my friends that I served with have come back the same way. I'm jaded. I'm just jaded in a different way. We all have our own reactions to these things, but I hope he's doing okay. And I hope somebody at DC Comics just steps in and be like, hey, dude, enough's enough. Let's try something else, because doing the same, the same story beats, the same character deconstruction over and over and over, it's gotten old. And maybe it's time to celebrate one of these heroes rather than trashing him, because that's all you've been doing now for quite a few years. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.